freedom of religion is a guarantee that we've taken pretty much for granted. We just assume it's part of our framework as a society. It was once a very revolutionary idea that people could believe what they wanted to. They could assemble with whom they wanted to. They could express those beliefs as their consciences dictated without interference from the state, and that the state would actually protect that right. That was once a very revolutionary idea. Now we take it for granted. Now this is encased, or this is enshrined as a fundamental human right. And it's a kind of a pillar of democracy. To make that freedom of religious expression real requires that there be a place to carry out that religious expression. If you start from the very earliest notions of sacred circles and other places where people could have those sacred gatherings, where religious instruction can take place, where the rites can be carried out, where people can find sustenance and support for their religious ideals, and they can find a place of community. This is where place takes a very important role in carrying out religious freedom. The notion that there needs to be a place for one to carry out religious expression or free religious expression, and that this right needs to be protected may seem like a no-brainer. But it gets more complicated as governments from local to national have sought to regulate, and not without good reason, various aspects of land use like zoning, traffic, parking, and historic preservation. This regulation should ensure that public safety and other essential concerns can be accommodated while protecting free religious expression. But these land use laws can sometimes make it very burdensome or even impossible for religious communities to operate. Furthermore, they can sometimes be used to keep an unpopular religion from building their church or their mosque in a community. There's the example in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where the community, not the community, but I think elements within the community have opposed the construction of a mosque there, and even led one of the presidential candidates, Herman Cain, to say the community should have the right to prevent mosques from locating in their communities. Well, religion shouldn't have to compete on the basis of popularity to have that place. This right of place is a guaranteed right. But let's face it, it can sometimes be challenging to have a church or a mosque or a temple in one's neighborhood. It brings parking concerns, it brings traffic concerns, it brings these natural issues to the community. So to balance these competing needs, and while protecting free religious expression, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, known as RLUIPA, was enacted by Congress in September of 2000. It seeks to protect individuals, houses of worship, and other religious institutions from zoning and landmarking laws that substantially burden religious exercise without a compelling government justification. RLUIPA also bars the government from applying zoning and landmarking laws in a manner that discriminates against particular religions, that treats religious assemblies or institutions on a less than equal basis than other institutions, or that unreasonably excludes houses of worship from a jurisdiction. Now, balancing these competing desires of local neighborhoods and local jurisdictions and religious communities is not always easy. Religious institutions do need to be mindful, and they need to be responsive to the community's legitimate needs and concerns. Community groups, on the other hand, need to appreciate the constructive role that churches play in their community, and they need to help make room for them. Some inconvenience in the form of an occasional traffic or parking issue is a reasonable price to pay for the benefits that they bring. In recent years, the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington has played an active role in addressing some of the issues related to religious land use, advocating for the rights of religious communities while making every effort to facilitate dialogue between neighborhoods and faith communities. There are a few examples that have been involved, include my own faith community, Soka Gakkai International, the Buddhist Association, which sought to build its worship center on Embassy Row, right here where I'm sitting. And certain neighbors challenged the zoning board's approval, asserting that the Buddhist center did not qualify as a church or place of worship because its manner of worship did not conform with the more common Abrahamic standards of the use of worship space. The IFC supported the Buddhist Center's efforts, both by providing crucial testimony to the board and by helping to facilitate dialogue with neighborhood leaders. Another case in point was the case of the Third Church of Christ Scientist located at 16th and I. The congregation found its existing structure too unwelcoming in its style and too costly to operate. It wanted to tear down the concrete bunker-like structure and replace it with an improved and more welcoming church. They faced unexpected opposition from the District of Columbia's Preservation League and the city's Historic Preservation Review Board, which had approved designating the building as an historic landmark and refused to issue the demolition permit needed to tear down the old building so they could build their new church. Again, the Interfaith Conference came to the aid of the congregation, speaking out against this unfair burdening of the church and providing testimony and appeals to the Historic Preservation Review Board and to the D.C. City Council. In May 2009, the District of Columbia reversed its position and granted permission for the church to proceed. Another case in point is the case of the chapel of the Church of Latter-day Saints on North 16th Street here in the District of Columbia. In all of these cases, the IFC has sought to speak up to assert the fact that religions have a right to a place, and while they need to listen to the neighbors' concerns and respond to them, the rights itself need to be respected and protected. I think there's no real easy answers to this. I think all of this will be worked out, hopefully in the case of cooperation as any incoming or improving religious facilities seek to be mindful of their neighbors and the neighbors seek to make a place for the church as well.